Hello, everyone. Can you hear the sound? Hello, everyone. You're welcome to the show. So I'm privileged to host EIE Nigeria's Call of Duty Conversations. It's a series of conversations that happen Monday to Friday for now, and I think Mondays and Friday much later. It's actually generated a lot of controversy on social media. But the truth of the matter is I'm just the host. I'm not the activist in question. I'm just the host. I'm going to bring on Sowore. Where is your dyed hair? Sorry. I'm going to bring on Sowore, the founder of Sahara Reporters and former presidential candidate. I'm trying to find this page now. Where is Sowore? As soon as I see Yele Sowore, I'll get him on the show. I'm here to see him. Okay, he's coming to join us on this page. He apparently must have gone to my personal page. So he's coming to join us on this page any moment from now. Please exercise some patience. So I'm the one asking the questions. I'm not the one talking about political activism. So I'm going to try to add Sowore. Oh, is it live? He's live on the Sahara Reporters page. So let me join him. So we're just waiting for Sowore. The orange hair is coming. So please ask your questions. I'm going to pick up questions much later in the show. 30 minutes into the show, I tried to pick up questions. We told people to ask questions on Twitter, but they refused to ask questions. They were just looking to drag. We're not about that. So I'm going to have to go with the questions that was set up by the EIE team in the absence of questions from Twitter. So show is here. Hello?
Yes, hi, good afternoon from here.
Good afternoon, how are you doing?
I'm very good.
How is everything? It's been a while.
It has been a while because you have been outside and I've been inside. You know?
This conversation has generated a lot of issues on social media, especially on Twitter.
Okay.
Because apparently there was some assumption that I was supposed to be the one speaking on political activism, or maybe it was just intentional misconception. But I'm glad to host you on behalf of EIE. First of all, I'd like to ask, like, do we have the critical mass to actually, because from you being the person right there at the forefront of this activism and trying to get Nigerians to be involved, do we have the critical mass to make a move in a way that the political system will pay attention and listen to the Nigerian people from the point of activism?
Yes.
Do you think we do?
We do.
Okay.
But the question is, what is critical mass? Critical mass about critical mass is the mass of people who understand deeply enough and are committed enough to change an oppressive political system. We have them. The question is, have they actually moved to the barricades? Have they moved to the front lines? And are they courageous enough to confront the system to the point that they can cripple the system and give themselves the breathing space and the liberty and freedom they need to have integrity as citizens? That is the question that is always dangling on the ceiling.
So in that,
we do.
Okay, so in that case, does it then look like we have a challenge with mobilization? If we have the number?
I won't say we have a challenge with mobilization. The question is that when we mobilize, how many people are mobilizing and how many people are demobilizing? That's the question. And, when we come to an agreement, a concrete agreement that things are bad, why are people still dilly-dallying or debating or analyzing or, over-analyzing what we should do next? That's the problem. The controversy that you're talking about on Twitter, right? Some people consider you an activist, right? Because, whether you like it or not, you came, as an activist to the public domain. And when things happen, they look up to you because people follow you. You have thousands of followers, right? They expect to hear from you very clearly what is wrong and what should be done about it. The same thing applies to me. The same thing applies to the EIA guys. It applies to the people who call themselves, social media influencers today. They're actually, persons who are living up of public trust. And that's why you see there's controversy when people don't get clarity from us. When they think that we are playing games with their intelligence, they come after us. They ask hard questions. It's not as if the people that are asking you questions on Twitter are not all necessarily sponsored people. They're actually the critical mass that we are. What they want from us, because we always talk about what country.
Okay, so the question is,
Can you hear me?
So you spoke to I was losing you for a bit, but I got the most part of what you said.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but I was losing you for a bit, but I got the most part of what you said. So where do we draw the balance between organizations that attract resources from outside of the country, from taxpayers that are not Nigerians, and the interest of those organizations and the interest of their foreign funders and the Nigerian interest? Where do we find the intersection for the interest of the Nigerian people in particular? Because for instance, I don't have any organization sending me money to do this or do that. I'm a private citizen. Yes, I have a lot of followers. The same thing with a lot of Nigerians. But people like yourself also depend on people that fund, like Sahara Reporters, for instance, has resources from outside. EIE they have people that they are responsible to, that are accountable to. So how do you draw that line between fighting for a people and getting resources from outside of the country to supposedly fight for those people?
You just make this general assumption that people get resources from outside. There's nothing called resources from outside. The resources that come from outside to fund public good, they actually come from here. This is Africa. We are on the continent of Africa where
but we have foreign organizations like Ford Foundation or Media Fund, CSOs in Nigeria.
Yes, that's correct. But what I'm telling you is that where do they make their money from? They make their money from trading things that come from the continent of Africa as well. So they're giving back. But if you want to go even that route with me, I would challenge your university education if you went to a Nigerian university where Ford Foundation probably funded, some of your lecturers, they funded some of the books you're reading, they sent you computers. So don't let us degrade the importance of, the work we are doing in the public with this idea of, what I would call esotericism of, somebody saying, oh, I'm the one who is funding myself. The money that you are getting, do you know where it comes from? Have you traced it to, if you work for a state governor, for example, do you know where he got his grant from that he paid you from? Do you know whether they got a loan from an international organization or international, business?
So the question
entity?
is, where do you draw the line between the different interests that are aligned to sponsor the different people that are sponsors? Where do we draw the line for the interests of the people in particular?
Because there's public conscience, right? There's good and there's bad. The people who are getting money from the so-called independent people who are getting money from Nigeria, making money independently, a lot of them are bad, right? In fact, some of the monies that they steal from here, they send it abroad, and some of the foundations they are talking about help you repatriate it back to you so that you can use it for school, you can use it for water, you can use it for other things that you need in your own countries. What I'm saying is, don't reduce this conversation to people who are getting money from abroad as if it's a crime.
I'm not reducing the conversation.
Let me finish. What I'm trying to tell you is that for example, I founded Sowore Reporters. It took me almost 5 years before I got any form of funding, right? The guys who started Yahoo got a fund from some guy. Some guy gave them, in fact, by the time they got a check from, I think, Paul Allen or something, I don't want to be quoted because I'm not sure as I'm speaking with you, but whomever was the investor, they didn't have a bank account, right? So people who are creative, who create organizations or create not-for-profit organizations and label them and register them as such, they have a purpose for it. And if they attract funding, because our local business people or local people are not interested in funding them, they want to be independent. Whenever you want funding from home, they want to control what you do. They want to tell you what to do. That is the reason why, for example, Sowore Reporters doesn't collect ads from government, because the moment you take ads from them, the next day they are back to tell you what to write. We don't do that, It's that you have to define what are your goals and what you do, what are the do's and what are the don'ts. It's not about the foreign interest as we make it sound like, oh, foreign interest. If foreign interest is a problem, then we should also abolish our democracy because it came from abroad. A lot of the pro-democracy activities in this country was funded by organizations abroad, in Finland, in Denmark, in Germany, in the US, because you have said you want democracy, which is not, a particular process that was, created on the continent of Africa. But I'm not saying that democracy is alien to Africa. Let's be very, very clear about that.
So in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis and the fact that Nigeria has been on a lockdown, and most of the poor people in Nigeria, they earn their living daily. So basically, they are in a position where government is saying, if you go outside, you're going to die. But they are in a position where they are going to also die of hunger if they don't go out. What's the place of activism in ensuring that people are safe?
I want to correct you. Nigeria was never in a lockdown. Nigeria was put in a lockjam. Those are two different things. If Nigeria was in a lockdown, members of the presidency, that is high officials of the presidency, including ministers, the secretary to the government of the federation, would not have gone to a public burial and behaved as if they're above the law, right? Nigeria was never put in a lockdown.
Okay, so let me use your word and say, in the reality of Nigeria's logjam and the fact that poor people cannot access their means of livelihood, what's the place of activism? Pardon me?
I said, now you are talking.
So, using your words now, so what's the place of activism in ensuring that these people that don't have access to their means of livelihood are able to continue to exist and thrive?
This is the time to know the real activists, because it is in a time of sorrow, suffering, blood and tears, if I want to borrow Fela's terminologies, that those who are passionate, those who are compassionate. And compassion is not, giveaways alone, because we have seen that giveaways cannot even last very long. Nobody is doing it anymore as it used to be at the beginning. Because in the first place, it is the duty of government, real government, to protect citizens, to make sure that they provide for them in the period of difficulties. And I don't want to go to making examples about, you know, the US or Europe or anything too far. South Africa here, they make provision for all their citizens. They're paying people who have kids who their parents, I mean, who kids don't, I mean, who are like baby mamas, as we call them. I don't like to use that derogatory technology, but I mean, terminology. But this is something that is generally used. They're supporting everybody across the board. You know, they're even supporting non-citizens. Even Italy, that had one of the worst cases of corona pandemic, supporting. You saw some Nigerians making videos when they go and collect their checks or cash from the government. Here, you put people down in a logjam, not a lockdown, or you imprison them, and then you send the police after them, you send the army after them. At the end of the day, as you are counting corona casualties, you're also counting the number of people killed by soldiers, police, civil defense. That is when you need real activists. That is when you know who is an activist.
So what can we do to bring that issue to the fore and make sure that people are able to access a form of living in that logjam?
Yes, it's to ensure that we free up our resources and give it to the people that they belong to. We must force our government, you know, I don't use the word our government, their government, the guys who are holding Nigeria to ransom today, to release resources to the vulnerable, the poor, and the weak, you know, and not make this period a period for the strong, the rich, and the powerful and connected. What am I trying to tell you? The Central Bank of Nigeria has already released about 200 billion naira to businesses, another 50 billion naira to people they call small businesses. We don't know who they are, but they have not given the generality of our population, the Nigerian people, you know, any support that is traceable. They just came out one day or a few days, put a bunch of dirty naira notes on the table and claimed that they were distributing it. When people shouted, they fired the people who they said did it. And they said, well, if you look into your account and you have less than 5,000 naira, we'll give you some palliatives. I have 1,480 naira. I've not gotten the palliative. I did not check in my account too. What I'm telling you is that there is no structure to the madness. There is no method to the madness of leadership in this country. And that is why we need real activists, people who can stand up, take the risk that is needed, and fight to ensure that the people don't die of hunger at the point that they are in a logjam, accentuated by a leadership that I think is completely incompetent and confused. You know, and I'm saying it categorically. You know, this is the reason I went to detention for 5 months.
So you could have been Nigeria's president now because you ran for office. So I'd ask a question that has to do with the possibility that you could have won the elections. You probably will say you won the elections on May.
There was no election, Omojuwa. There were no elections. Those were selections, you know, and you can quote me any day, anywhere.
So what if there was? What if there was an election?
I would have won the election. Won the people like you supported me, by the way.
What do you think,
Buhari? Social media influencers like you. Yes.
I'm going to come to that aspect.
No problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you think? So I'm going to ask the question in 2 ways, but it's going to require the same answer. What do you think Buhari should be doing that he's not doing, or what would you have been doing differently if you were president in a situation like this?
You see, when we were campaigning, I wish you paid attention. We had a program or a set of programs known as Spicer Hits. You know, that was our manifesto, which is that security will be our priority, power, infrastructure, anti-corruption, and we have a robust economic system, not the World Bank style failed economic system that they keep revolving in Nigeria. And we had a program on health. Our program on health in particular was to have hired over 600,000 nurses across Nigeria as soon as we came into office. That would have been May last year, right? And by the time this pandemic came, it wouldn't have met us, you know, it wouldn't have caught us napping the way, because we'd have had people set up across Nigeria to take care of this kind of problem. We would have invested a certain percentage of our national budget on healthcare, on education, on infrastructure, on security, and we would have nipped corruption in the bud. And we would have diversified the economy. You know, people used to make fun of me, right? When I said just one example of how to diversify the economy, which was that we could start growing medical marijuana in Ondo State, Edo State, and the Delta states, and be making billions by now, because Nigeria, incinerates over 15 trillion naira of marijuana every year. People are making fun of me. Go and check. Just Google it, how much that industry is worth now. And the oil that all of them were running around with has dropped to zero. It's not about the fact that we knew what we were going to do, but we also were clairvoyant enough to know that you needed the kind of leadership that will put Nigeria on a strong footing, so that if we find ourselves in a situation that we have found ourselves now, we will not be complaining. Because even the lackluster, in my view, South African leadership did a better job. Our neighbors in Ghana did a better job. That's why they are able to now start reopening their economies, while we are thinking about another 2 weeks or 1 month. I think our guys here are very happy that there's nothing going on, because they are just withdrawing cash and taking care of themselves anyways. So, but the kind of leadership that Nigeria needed, it was as if we were prophetic in saying that, look, you can't continue like this, because otherwise you find yourselves in dire situations, and we are in deep doo-doo right now.
Okay, so I asked a question. You said if I was paying attention. I thought that was disrespectful, but that's a different thing entirely. I'd like to go back to the election now. How are you able to unite a country as an activist and a politician when people that are supposed to be like fellow activists, I don't know if you would agree that they are activists or not, you guys could not come together to agree on a consensus candidate?
I don't want to sound as if I'm bragging. I went to that meeting where they were talking about consensus candidates for the youth, only once. And I came to the conclusion that we are different. And I wasn't being arrogant. I didn't see the passion, the zeal, and the preparation amongst all these other young people that I met with that showed that they were ready for even leadership. And then a little bit of investigation showed that a lot of them were representing different special interests in the country. So it would be wrong to call some of them activists. Yes, a lot of them were motivational speakers. Some of them were, all these half-baked economists who keep repeating the same mantra on a daily basis. Some other ones, were actually, in my view, religious leaders. They were very good pastors. Some of them. And don't forget that I went to more than one meeting. I also attended a meeting at VI where I think Chief Kolade was in attendance. It was the same thing. I called aside one of the organizers. I said to them, look, most of these guys that you are trying to, bring together, they are working at variance. And we stopped at that point and went down to the Nigerian people. Nobody campaigned more than I did. I went to 34 states, including the Federal Capital Territory. Across Nigeria, we drove, we flew, we went on water. Everywhere you could go to, we went to the people. We campaigned. We had a manifesto. We had an agenda. We sold it to the Nigerian people. But the people you are referring to were more interested of more of the same. They wanted the same old people. They were accusing me of having no experience. And I asked them, the people you are claiming have experience, what experience did they have apart from stealing? Nobody could answer it.
Do you think that you probably have issues with their ideology rather than the fact that maybe they collected or didn't collect money?
Matter. It wasn't an ideological matter. I don't want us to, make it difficult, because when you start talking ideology, you alienate some people. Clearly, I know how people feel about when you start, talking about ideology. It's like talking calculus.
Because I think it's easy. I think
you could tell that they weren't representing the interests of the people. They weren't interested in campaigning. They just wanted to help.
Not one of them. Not one of them.
The only person I would say, and I'll say publicly, that I thought was fairly interested and different a bit, was Tokwe Fashua. But in all fairness to Tokwe wasn't interested to do a rugged fight. He said, look, I know what to say, I know what to do, but I don't want to fight these people. I'm just going to run. And he didn't stress himself too much, but I will be fair to him that I saw that Tokwe had, fresh ideas, and he was pushing them. And it wasn't difficult to find out after the elections were over. Where did all of them disappear to? as if the problems had gone away. So we confronted the problems because we knew that the situation would not improve and things would get worse. And you saw what they did to someone like me.
So how do we then come to the table? Because something is common with the political class. We have elections in about 3 years, and they're already coming together, having conversations. They know how to disagree.
They are not having, there's no political class having no conversations. They are just ganging up against Nigerian people.
Okay, they are ganging up.
They are
using your word now.
They are doing contracts.
When are those that?
They don't have conversations. I know these people very well. None of them can sit down like you and I are speaking now, Omojuwa. You know, you cannot have a conversation with President Buhari for as long as I have spoken with you.
So when are you and those that care about Nigeria going to have their own gang up? Which is because now it looks like you're working by yourself.
The people
these
that
are bad
care
people. These are bad people.
It's the people. When you want to liberate your country, you look right. You look out for the people who are suffering. You look out for the people who want change. You can't be running to the same people who created the problem, hoping to get a solution from them. It's the reason why it is defined as a campaign, that you go out there, sell your ideas, sell your manifestos, and get the people to vote. But the problem is that they at least don't allow elections to happen. I recorded it in my village. They brought soldiers, nothing less than 12 of them. I was using a small drone. They shot it down. I put it out on social media. They didn't allow people to vote. They took the election materials away from the polling units to the collation centers. So they were just manufacturing figures. It was the reason why they were so scared of going to court that they had to manipulate the court system to remove anybody that they thought could be an obstacle. All of us saw all this. What we need is to come to that point of truthfulness about our problems and how to solve it, and not to be cowardly about it. You know.
Okay, so we have reached the first half of the conversation. I'm going to take questions from the audience, but I don't want you to cut Instagram to cut us off. So I'm going to take you off, and then we'll come back, and then we'll take questions from the audience.
All right.
Thank you.